Well, thank you so much all for coming. It's important to start on time because I know that many of you have other engagements and, most importantly, law school classes to go to after this. I have only the second best job today, not that of introducing our distinguished guest and medal recipient, but rather introducing our own distinguished medal winner and colleague, the Ernst Freund Distinguished Service Professor of Law and Ethics, my colleague and friend Martha Nussbaum. Professor Nussbaum is well known to most of us here. She brings grace and favor to the term public intellectual. Her writings on India, the emotions, the constitutional constraints that are around us, and most recently, especially I think on religion, have brought, I would say it's fair to say, inspiration to those of us who read her work. She is the founder of the Center for Comparative Constitutionalism here at the university. If you happen not to know what that is, then you need to get involved and look at the programs and attend the next things and do your reading. She is not only an inspiration through her work, but through her person. She's an inspiration to deans and to colleagues, and perhaps the most important mentor to many students that we have in our midst here at the law school, as well as in the philosophy department, the divinity school, and elsewhere. I can't help but put in a plug for law school classes. So her current classes include Shakespeare and the Law, but it's too late for you to sign up if you haven't tried that already. And also the Law and Philosophy Workshop, which you can go to even if you're not signed up. We're very grateful to her for encouraging the selection of Ela Bhatt as our medal recipient and guest today. And I think it's just another example of how Professor Nussbaum's energy and wide-ranging interests benefit us all. So thank you, and the podium is yours.
This is not about me, but let me just mention that the next thing that the Center for Comparative Constitutionalism is doing, I mean, last year we gave a big conference here about Indian democracy and the various forces in civil society that facilitate and impede democracy. We're now going on and giving a conference in India. We're co-sponsoring it with Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi on affirmative action in higher education. And there's one research assistant from here who's actually going over to India for it, but others of you can be very much involved in preparing the publications that will come out of that later. But it's such a wonderful occasion for us in the law school to welcome really one of my great heroines. Oh, this mic just went off. That's okay. I don't know what happened, but anyway, Ela Bhatt yesterday was awarded the Benton Medal for Public Service, which is this university's highest honor, really. I mean, it's not the same as an honorary degree because it honors a whole life and a whole career, and it's a career for a career of public service. It has only been awarded 8 times in the university's history, and it has never before been awarded to someone who is not an American. So this is an exciting departure. I gather, I mean, I'm not 100% sure about this, that it's never been awarded to somebody whose public service had to do particularly with the lives of women. So that's another great thing. Now, Ela Bhatt is recognized all around the world as one of the world's most remarkable pioneers and entrepreneurs in grassroots development. For more than 30 years, she's been organizing poor working women in India, providing a whole range of programs with labor organization at the very center, but also microcredit and a woman's bank, basic education, health care, and a more general promoting of self-esteem and agency. By now, the trade union linked with the Self-Employed Women's Association has about 1 million members. She's also more recently a co-founder of Women's World Banking, which she chaired for 8 years, and of an organization called WeGo, Women in the Informal Economy, Globalizing and Organizing. This organizes what are called informal sector workers, and a very large proportion of female workers in India are in the informal sector of the economy, meaning that they're hawkers and vendors or home-based workers. They're not protected by any labor union, so the challenge has been to get protections for them, and the ILO finally, thanks to Ela Bhatt's work, has recognized minimum standards for such workers. So this is a career that's all the more remarkable in that the headquarters of the Self-Employed Women's Association, Ahmedabad in the state of Gujarat, is a place where, as some of you may know, the state has been riven by religious tensions and unfortunate instances of religious violence. But SEWA has always proudly organized women across religious lines without any distinction of either religion or caste, and has managed very courageously to maintain that in the midst of very, very difficult conditions. The book that some of you have had a study group to read, Bhatt's own account of her work, is a book called We Are Poor But So Many, The Story of Self-Employed Women in India. I'll just say again what I wrote on the book jacket because I can't think of anything better to say. The story of Ela Bhatt's important work organizing female labor in the informal economy should be required reading for all policymakers who have anything to do with developing countries and for concerned citizens who care about the impact of globalization and government policies on the lives of the working poor. It is difficult indeed for prosperous Western people to imagine the lives of poor female workers whose very existence is rarely acknowledged by government policy, although they are the backbone of India's economy. And this is what the book so eloquently shows. Rag pickers, stitchers, hawkers and vendors, agricultural laborers. Bhatt's eloquent and richly detailed narrative shows the daunting obstacles such workers face, but also their resilience, adaptability, and solidarity. So what we're going to do is Dr. Bhatt will speak about the story of women in India, the SEWA experience, and there will then be time for questions. Then we'll adjourn to a reception where you will have a chance to meet with her more informally. But I'd like now just to ask you to give her an extremely warm welcome. This is a life, I think, that we all should honor and emulate to the extent that any of us would be capable of that.
Yesterday at this hour of time I was receiving the medal. I'm very grateful to the University of Chicago, and now I have been fortunate and have the opportunity to stand before you and talk about something about my work that is organizing. So thank you very much, Shri Paul Lovemore, and thank you, Professor Martha. Thank you. You can see me. The Bhagavad Gita puts work as central to a person's life. Karma is work, which holds the universe in balance. In other words, one who eats without putting in due work is a thief. As we have seen while working with poor women, that work is most crucial to their lives. It gives meaning to their life. Work forges our individual identity. The work provides livelihoods that produce goods and services, and thus builds a society, a nation. But poverty breaks down that balance. It disturbs the universe. In poverty, we see exploitation, discrimination, and divide and rule policy, so intimidation, fear, hierarchical institutions at every stage of life of the individual, of the community, in the environment. Poverty is an ongoing violence. Poverty is violence against individuals, society, and nature. Poverty and loss of freedom are not separate. Poverty is indeed man-made. Poverty must go. Gandhiji had seen in women a breakthrough. He saw that women can do both, bring freedom and fight poverty, both. He saw women as leaders of change. True, we have faith in women's leadership in bringing transformation in the society. They are leading the change already in India. About SEWA. At SEWA, we work with women because they are the most vulnerable today. At SEWA meet women on the basis of work and create networks. We build unions to meet our work needs, to stop economic exploitation by traders, contractors, our governments, the global community, and the system and structures. In SEWA, we have come together to build a bank to meet our financial needs, to save, to borrow, to loan, to build assets, to tap resources, to improve the material quality of life. We have come together to build cooperatives, to get integrated into the production process of our country. We build social security for our maternity needs, health, and life insurance. We have been trying to forge bridges to local and global markets through a trade facilitation network of women farmers and crafts across the world. We create schools to build our capacities, to manage our affairs and make an impact in the world outside. We keep on struggling, sometimes effectively, to intervene in the macro policy level. This is, in short, SEWA. SEWA is not a project. It's not a collection of social and economic institutions. It's not even money or power. It's about restoring balance. SEWA is about the self-reliance of the poor woman, her family, her community, and her work environment, and this world we all live in. As I said, SEWA members are women, poor and economically active. They are workers, producers, entrepreneurs, and self-employed in their own right. They have a business, manage their affairs, and live on the hard-earned surplus in the bad times. They take risks. They borrow from moneylenders, they brave the policeman, and if they fail, they pay with hunger and destitution. If they succeed, they engage others in their family to carry on the trade. Basically, I would call them all entrepreneurs. This entrepreneurship comes out of their severe need for day-to-day survival. A woman who has no money will set herself up as a rag picker. She can pick the kind of trash that can be turned to cash at the end of the day and feed the family. She may have earnings today, but if it rains, she has none tomorrow. Their economic cycle is a daily cycle. Their savings are minuscule and they can be wiped out in an instant. When one lives on the margin, anything can happen. Picking garbage dumps is a risky business. The sharp metals and glass can injure. The chance of contracting a disease is very high. So illness is a constant companion of the poor, and this vulnerability, it does not allow them many chances to get ahead. So, then what is it that poor women need for long-term self-sufficiency? Of course, money, but not only money. The economic structure is closely connected with the social structure. Barriers to entry to labor as well as product markets, for example, are closely connected with gender, caste, and class. Social institutions, social processes, social structures have a huge influence over economic development. Moreover, social needs such as health, childcare, education, and housing are all linked to economic capabilities as well as to the provision of social security by markets and the state. Thus, it is the market and state structures that determine the poverty or well-being of the people. Since the economic and social structures are so interrelated, the solutions too have to be integrated. Social change without economic change has limited meaning, and economic change without social change also has limited meaning. This means that there is no one formula for poverty reduction. Rather, it has to be an approach which addresses the various economic and social factors which cause and perpetuate poverty. Hence, SEWA's approach has been an integrated approach where various changes are needed, not one after the other, but simultaneously. For long-term self-sufficiency, poor women need capital formation at the household level. With access to financial services of SEWA Bank, like savings, credit, and insurance, they can build from the bottom up and create assets of their own. Women borrow to recover their mortgaged land or house, buy land, build a house or workshed, buy equipment, or buy cattle to increase productivity. Or, if they just want to save for later, they safely deposit cash in the bank. For sure, asset ownership is the best weapon to fight the powerlessness of poverty. That's what SEWA has found. Poor women and their organizations need to gain power to stand firm in a competitive market. They need access to market infrastructure as well as access to technology, information, education, knowledge and skills like accountancy, management know-how, planning, designing and marketing and all other. They need social security, including basic health care, childcare, shelter and relief to combat the ever-present risk of being disempowered that they face with their families. First and the last, they need collective organized strength to be able to actively participate at various levels in the planning, implementation, and monitoring processes of the economic, social, and political affairs of their nation. It is important that all four components for self-sufficiency, capital, capacities, social security, and collective strength, are in place simultaneously, as well as in a combination that is visible and manageable by them. Mere credit or health care is meaningful, but in a limited sense. One input without the other does not yield desired results, while one after the other comes too late. Is money power a woman's power? Whether they have work on hand or not, women, SEWA women, do visit the union office and their bank account. Once they see money collecting in their bank account, a sea change comes over them. A predominant change, of course, is a sense of security and perhaps a sense of less worry. Evident is her gradually growing self-confidence, a greater feeling of importance, a higher sense of power as she begins to recognize her own contribution to the family. For many women, money spells mobility, the simple ability to step out of her house, out of her neighborhood, and walk in the street or market to sell her products or make demand despite criticism from family elders. Even her husband's attitude softens when she has financial security of her own. She is no longer seen as a burden or as an expense. Unlike rag pickers, stitchers, tailors are home-based. Bismillah Khala, a quilt stitcher in Daryapur, was homebound. Being old, now she has stopped stitching. However, in their Sabina cooperative, she has a regular and quick visitor. In the afternoon, while her husband was taking a nap, Khala would buy a good quality chindi, the chindi that is strips of textile. She would buy good quality chindi and go house to house, selling for a small profit. Her husband ordered her to stay at home where you belong, he said. But the following day, Khala was back to the shop making her rounds. When she returned home, she found her husband waiting with a stick in his hand. Furious, he hit her hard until the neighbors intervened. After a few days, recovered Khala was back at the Sabina shop. Thereafter, the Sabina sisters accompanied her back home, although nobody knew that whether her husband had stopped beating her. A few days later, a few days later, the cooperative offered Khala a job at the weighing machine for a monthly salary of rupees 500. No one knew if Khala convinced her husband to let her go to work, but she arrived every day, her face with a mix of smiles and fear. After a few long months, there was a strange sight. Khala's husband was coming at noon carrying a hot tiffin lunch for his wife. Like Khala, the other women going out to work faced similar reactions from their men and family. Of course, to varying degrees of disapproval. While SEWA does not intervene directly in the domestic matters, the co-member sisters in the trade lend support, particularly to strengthen her work security, and most often having economic security or the earning capacity that generates a gradually inner strength in the woman that allows her to face and sort out her domestic problems with some confidence. As women become more informed, more knowledgeable, and more experienced, they gather strength. When BD rollers learn from a workers' education class that they are legally entitled to a minimum wage of rupees 35 for rolling 1000 BDs, they begin to put real value to their work as well as time and demand their dues with conviction. Gomiben, a street vendor, always felt that she was engaged in an illegal profession until she came to the SEWA school and realized that street vending is a legitimate occupation. Of course, the money has become a new source of power for women. Once, at a SEWA bank meeting, I asked our board members if money was power. Some women categorically agreed. One woman said that money gave strength and that was power. But when asked who the most powerful person in the room was, the women pointed to Jayashree, the managing director of SEWA Bank. They felt that she literally had the money power of the bank. Her power also came, they said, from the fact that Jayashree was educated, efficient at her work, and had the strong support of the women for whom she worked. I argued that since the money of the bank came from you, the women, why was it that you yourself did not feel the most powerful? They explain that savings and capital give one a sense of power to oneself, but the collective strength of hundreds of thousands of women gave one big power. So essentially, money is power, but collective organized strength to collectively own, manage and benefit is a bigger power. Power Shakti, as the women call it. Such awareness of the collective strength is democracy in practice. The process of electing trade representatives and the process of collective bargaining are both the building blocks of democracy and the seeds of political awareness among women. Their recognition of the collective as their major capital comes from the fact that they see the limitations of money as power at their individual level. With money, information and collectivization, SEWA women succeeded to some extent in building capital and resources. However, given the vulnerability of the poor to all sorts of natural, man-made and medical disasters, SEWA began to realize that insurance is an essential economic component. Financial services like savings and credit encourage women to save for insurance. Insurance coverage, in turn, promotes savings and credit and long-term financial planning among poor women. Microinsurance is a part of microfinance and must be integrated with asset-building programs through higher earning capabilities. Microinsurance is also an integrated part of Social Security that includes healthcare, childcare, shelter, old age pension, and protection. Since the poor face frequent and multiple risks, they prefer coverage of these multiple risks through an integrated insurance program. Coverage for sickness is the top priority for women, followed by life and accident insurance. Our experience has shown that just as the poor are bankable, they are insurable. Let us look at the power relationships. There is a two-way link between resources and power. The powerless poor woman does need some power to access resources. Her initial power came from her unionizing into SEWA and then her association with SEWA Cooperative Bank. And then with that power, she could be in a better position to take the goods from her wholesaler. For example, a vegetable vendor would doubly feel empowered. One, because of her financially stable foundation to bargain. Two, to demand more reasonable prices from the wholesaler. There are several sources of money that the SEWA women access. Wholesaler, contractor, moneylender, and informal local groups like Vichy, that is a group of 20. But when they borrow from moneylenders, they do so from a position of weakness and helplessness, which the moneylender recognizes, and so the women's power falls. When they borrow from Vichy, they need trustworthy friends, but their power is still not increased. When they borrow from SEWA Bank, they do so from a position of power of being shareholder, and their power is consequently increased. Besides resources, there are several types of power that SEWA women struggle for. In the marketplace, they struggle to bargain for the fair treatment and prices. Within the home, they struggle to bargain for the fair allocation of resources. And in society, they struggle to bargain for active participation in a decision-making process. However, as our experience goes, in most cases, for a poor woman, collective economic strength has been the kingpin of many other types of powers. In such ways, as SEWA women's bargaining powers increased outside the home, with public policymakers raising their minimum wages and setting national policy for home-based workers and street vendors, changing the definition of worker, a trade union, to begin with. The embroiderer's presence is now more felt in the handicraft market, and the wholesalers more strongly honor their word. SEWA leaders are invited to participate in the caste panchayat meetings. In her home, she has become an important person. It is a long process to get organized so as to access resources, market, social security, and policy. It has taken a generation to earn confidence and trust and strength. In a democratic country, it is natural that the poor and their organizations want the governments to remain on their side while they are struggling to come out of poverty. But the governments remain on their side only to an extent, only as long as the poor take their welfare and remain unorganized and obediently staying on their side of the economic barrier line. When the poor start gaining self-confidence to run their affairs at a scale that has potential to make a difference, the government power structures feel disturbed and try to crush such demands from women and poor. Anyway, rapid changes in the society are already taking place. One sees change in the nature of different trades, education, culture, and relationships. So, social change happens anyway. What we often observe is that SEWA members are in forefront in the trends of change. Their daughter may be perhaps the first one in the village to learn new and non-traditional skill, or to face men or an authority. The organization has an impact on her. The fastest change one sees today at present is in the community of lower caste and women. They are rising and they are creating turmoil of a positive kind. There are many examples worldwide of women's leadership. I think that women's potential to lead change rises from their capacities to understand, manage, and deal with social and economic factors together in a holistic way. Their diverse experiences that the world now has begun to listen seriously, I believe. What I have learned from SEWA experience is that organizing is never enough. Organizing has to be institutionalized in different forms to respond to various contexts. Also organize at a certain scale and size, cutting across areas, cutting across countries, issues. It is the organized truth that wins, in my humble opinion. Thank you.